Hey friends, welcome to Studio Classroom Worldwide. My name is Steve.
And my name is Rachel, and we're so glad that you joined us for today's lesson. We are on day 2 of the lesson, Smart Small Talk. And we learned yesterday how important small talk is. It's the way that we make new friends and we make others feel comfortable when we talk to them. So we learned quite a few tips on how to do well at this, didn't we, Steve?
We did, Rachel. You know, something I learned is that small talk doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. It's something that we have to practice. It takes confidence, preparation, and practice. So it's an art form. It's a skill that we have to develop.
It sure is. And another thing that we learned yesterday that's important is when you meet someone, you should try to establish some sort of common ground, some things that you have in common with the other person. And you can talk about those things. And also, you should have about 3 topics ready so that you can have something to talk about.
Right. And if you want more ideas about those, again, you can look at page 25 at the top for some more suggestions. Well, right now, let's get into the reading. Join us on page 24 in your magazines as we begin on line 15.
Smart small talk. After you start a conversation, keep it going. Instead of asking questions that can be answered with a yes or no, ask open-ended questions like, what do you think of the convention? It's time to move on once you've made a good impression. Be bright, smart, and cheerful. Be brief. Don't talk too long. Be gone. There are more people to meet. Use an exit line. To someone you enjoyed meeting at a convention, say, I really must be going, but it was really nice to meet you. Here's my card. If they hand you their card, be sure to show interest in it. Read it over briefly and then put it in your pocket to show that it is valued. Making small talk will open doors to meeting many interesting people. When you show an interest in others, they become interested in talking to you. Listening carefully and remembering a fascinating bit of information about each person will come in handy if you meet again. So walk up to someone and make small talk.
Welcome back. Well, we've learned some great tips on how to get the conversation started when you want to talk with somebody, when you want to start small talking. But now we're going to talk a bit about after you start the conversation, because you need to keep the conversation going. It's not enough to just say, hi, how are you, and then stop. It can be kind of awkward after you introduce yourself, but you don't have anything else to talk about.
Exactly, Rachel. You don't want to let the conversation die because that's very awkward. It can be a little uncomfortable and even a little embarrassing sometimes after you've gotten off to a good start and then the conversation kind of dives and just dies out. That's no good.
It isn't. So we need to keep the conversation going. So we have some suggestions for you. One of them is, instead of asking questions that can be answered with a yes or no, you can ask open-ended questions. Now, first of all, let's talk about what open-ended questions are. They're the opposite of closed-ended questions. It just means a question that it requires an answer besides yes or no.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. In other words, it doesn't have a definite yes-no answer. It allows for a spontaneous answer or a personalized answer. So you never know what kind of answer you'll get. It depends actually on who you ask. So, ask open-ended questions like, what do you think of the convention? That's a good example.
Exactly. This is such a great skill to learn, even in other jobs. For example, if you're a reporter and you have to get a news story, you need to learn how to ask these open-ended questions. If you just have yes or no questions, then you're not going to have much of an interesting news story.
Okay, good point. Well, let's look at that word convention on line 18. We saw this word yesterday, but we didn't really touch on it too much. A convention is a large formal meeting of people with similar interests, and often business people will go to conventions and talk about their area of interest in business. So If you're a businessman, you'll probably go to some conventions in your lifetime, and that's an important place to small talk.
Right. Now let me give you an example of the difference between an open-ended question and a closed-ended question. Let's say Steve and I are eating at a restaurant and I've never met him before. If I wanted to ask him a good open-ended question, I would probably say, Steve, what kind of food do you enjoy? All right, that gives him a chance to answer any way he wants. But if I ask him, do you like the chicken? Well, then he might just say yes or no, and the conversation might not go any further than that.
And the conversation might die out. So I think the importance or the summary of this section of the article is the importance of open-ended questions. You have to learn how to ask those questions.
You sure do. But as with anything, there's always a time to move on. You don't want to spend an hour talking with somebody if it's small talk. It will feel awkward after a while, and usually small talk just lasts a few minutes, actually. In line 19, we read that it is time to move on once you've made a good impression.
Okay, move on just means to continue, moving forward. So if you continue talking too long, maybe that person will think you're boring or you're taking up too much of their time, and you don't want them to think that. So the author says move on. Once you've made a good impression, then go ahead and try small talk with another person.
All right. Now, I'm thinking also in a business setting, sometimes you just need to introduce yourself to someone, and the purpose is just to maybe exchange a business card or whatever it might be, but to leave a good impression. You're not trying to become that person's best friend, but you do need to kind of go through the ritual of saying hello and talking for a couple minutes, and then you move on. And it's something that we do all the time. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel.
It is a skill that we have to learn, and it doesn't come naturally to most people. This sentence is actually one of our usage tips for this lesson, so if you want to learn more about this kind of structure, you can go ahead and look there on the bottom of page 24 for more examples of that.
All right, so let's move on to our last tips right now at the bottom of page 24 as well. Our author tells us we need to be bright, be gone, or be brief and be gone. Now these are, they all start with be, and I think that it's good advice. So let's start with be bright. Bright means smart and cheerful.
Right, you want to give this idea that you're happy, you're joyful. No one wants to talk to someone who looks depressed or who's complaining. They want to talk to someone who's exciting and encouraging. So be bright, be joyful, be
positive.
Be positive.
All right, so once you're being positive, then you can also be brief, which means don't talk too long. Most of us don't like it when people talk on and on and on to us. So just be brief. You know about how long it should be, maybe a couple of minutes, and then be gone, right, Steve?
Be gone. That means move on. Go ahead and meet more people. So those are 3 good B's to remember. Right now, though, let's go to the chat room, and then we'll take a short break.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the chat room. I'm Naomi, and this is Ken.
We're back for the second day of this article about small talk.
Right. I hope you're all practicing your conversation, but today I want to talk about punctuation.
Okay, we use punctuation like commas, dashes, and question marks when we're writing.
True. And another kind of punctuation we use is called parentheses. We have several examples of these in our text today.
Oh yeah, I see. Be bright, smart and cheerful. Be brief, don't talk too long. Be gone, there are more people to meet. We see some of those words put in parentheses.
Right. This is a great way to use parentheses. They're supposed to set apart information that is not needed, and we should be able to read the sentence smoothly without them.
So our example would then read, be bright, be brief, be gone.
It could, but the words in the parentheses give us more information on the meaning of each suggestion. Still, it's important to remember that if words are in parentheses, it usually means they're just extra information or an illustration